What's going on, Dolphins fans? It is a bad week for your Miami Dolphins to need a victory. They're 0-2. They're going to Buffalo, where they have lost the last 4 meetings against the Bills at Highmark Stadium, and a loss could cost Mike McDaniel his job. Bad set of circumstances. Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am Chris Perkins, your Miami Dolphins columnist, your host for the show for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. That is David Furones, your Miami Dolphins writer for the Miami Dolphins for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. I'm repeating myself here, Furones. I'm all off. I shouldn't have worn this black shirt. I'm lost in the deep like the Dolphins. What's going on with me here? What's going on with the Dolphins?
Yeah, I don't know. Such a somber mood already on this show, and I guess it does match the feel around the team. You picked it up a little bit there right before you brought me in for the intro, and then you almost pinned me as a Miami Dolphins employee. I cover the Miami Dolphins, but we do it for the South Florida Sun Sentinel.
I know. I'm all out of sorts here, man. I'm like the Dolphins. This is a shame. I'm going to try to get better. I'll see if I can have a better performance than we think the Dolphins will have tomorrow in Buffalo.
You're 0-2 right now, Perkin. You're going into a short week.
I know. It's just bad. It's just bad for us. Hey, we want to welcome all of our viewers there on YouTube watching the show. We want to remind you to leave a comment, a thought, a question on our live chat, the best place to get intelligent Dolphins talk. We want to remind you, if you miss any part of this program, you can watch the podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And we want to tell you that you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Fans Flash, by scanning the QR code shown on your screen. Furones, it is a compact week. This is going to be a compact show. Here's what we're going to talk about. If the Dolphins lose, can Mike McDaniel survive the weekend? Also, what about this defense? The front seven, where in the heck have they been? Are they going to surface against Buffalo? In our Furones bonus, you are going to tell us whether Tua has regressed. And as always, we will have our weekly predictions for the game. I'm not sure it's going to be very optimistic. As we always say around here, there's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. All right, baby. Now we're in sync. I like it. Now we're in sync. Furones, Mike McDaniel, the energy around the building, the energy around the fans, it's negative. It doesn't look like there's a bright future for Mike McDaniel. Let's talk here about something unlikely. What if the Dolphins win? Does Mike McDaniel survive the weekend, and what is his future like? If they win, I can't see him being fired, right? Of course not. Right. We can all agree on that. What do you think the future is if the Dolphins win? Because they do have that 11-day break between this game and the New York Jets game on Monday Night Football. I think things definitely pick up in the locker room. Do you think things pick up around the fan base?
Certainly. If the Dolphins do go into Buffalo as 12-point underdogs, which was the line last I checked, I think it might still be. Either way, long shot, right, to go in there and win. Then certainly, you start off with 2 losses. Actually, as I was chalking up wins and losses on the schedule, to get them to 9-8 at the end of the season, I had them at 2-0 to this point. Going into Buffalo, suffering their first loss here. So now you've already lost 2 that on a 9-8 track you should have won. So now it's really not looking good. And going into a game where you're expected to lose, I think if they go in and win, that would make up for 1.5, I would say. To go at Buffalo, that makes up for 1.5. And now all of a sudden you got the added momentum on top of that. Of beating a team that you haven't won in their house since 2016. You haven't won over there with Mike McDaniel, with Tua Tagovailoa. So that would be incredible momentum going into really what I see is a soft part of the schedule going into October, where you have the Jets at home on a long rest. You have the Carolina Panthers, albeit on the road. You do have the Chargers, who look really good, but that would be a 10 a.m. kickoff for them compared to 1 p.m. And back in the heat and humidity here, I know it didn't work very well for the Dolphins week 2 against the Patriots. But what I'm looking at going into, because we're talking about, does Mike McDaniel survive the weekend. And I kind of look at it as there's got to be a number, right? There's got to be a number where if the Dolphins lose by this much or in a certain way twice in 5 days, getting blown out in Buffalo while 0-3, where there's got to be a number where Stephen Ross says he's seen enough. Like, remember when Al Golden got the axe for the Miami Hurricanes? That was a 58-0 loss at home to Clemson, and would feel a little like history repeating itself with Miami football fans 10 years apart. Remember, Canes fans were flying banners calling for his firing multiple times, actually, before it actually went down for Golden. So it's a tough spot and unfortunate scenario for McDaniel on the short week, already with all the pressure and facing the Bills on the road where he hasn't won but has been close. And that's really the key to me, is that if they got to go in and be competitive, because I do like the stretch coming off this game if they have some momentum to build off of. So certainly, even if it's a competitive loss, then I wouldn't see him getting fired over this. It's just now 0-3, and then he's really got to pick it up before the mid-season point or later in the season when the schedule really gets tough the second half. But I would think it would have to be a blowout on a short week for Mike McDaniel to lose his job by Friday.
Yeah, and Furones, off the top of my head, the 4 scores at Buffalo have been 48-20, 34-31 in the playoffs, 32-29 in that snow game, and then 30-27 losing on that 61-yard field goal. So they have been close games. Here's another bad thing, though. The Dolphins are 3-10 in primetime games under Mike McDaniel. I think for the Dolphins to win, I think there are 2 things that are key. These aren't the only things that has to happen. Mike McDaniel has to outcoach Sean McDermott. Tua has to outplay Josh Allen. And we've seen Josh Allen just yank these games away. That 32-29 game, Josh Allen just took over late in that game. And Tua played a really good game that day. Or that night, I should say. But, Josh Allen just came and did the Josh Allen thing. Defensively, the Dolphins have to be able to stop James Cook and the run game. But, when we talk about can Mike McDaniel survive the weekend, if they lose, I think you hit it on the head. If the Dolphins don't play a disastrous game, if they come out and they show some inspired play, they show that they know what they're doing. They can get plays in on time. They don't have a wealth of penalties. They don't just make boneheaded plays, that they look like a cohesive unit, that they look like they have some promise. I think that could be a positive thing. It doesn't ensure that Mike McDaniel makes it throughout the season, but they look like a train wreck. They look like a dumpster fire. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching, everything has just been an absolute disaster. Is there somebody on this staff, Furones, that you think would be the most likely to take over? We've got the defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. We've got the running backs coach, Eric Stootsville, who was an interim coach, I believe, in Denver at one point. And John Embry, the tight ends coach. And I can't remember if that one is the assistant head coach, one is the associate head coach between Embry and Stootsville. I get them confused. The quarterbacks coach, Darrell Bevel, has been an interim head coach. Who would be the odds-on favorite to take over, understanding that this defense has not looked good at all?
That's the thing. I would have told you Anthony Weaver going into the season if this scenario were to play out, but not the way this defense has looked. And I feel like, we've had Anthony Weaver the last couple of years as he's had multiple interviews for head coaching vacancies. Yeah. And then he didn't get it the first time. So he landed the defensive coordinator gig with the Dolphins. After 1 year, again, getting multiple head coaching interviews, didn't get one of those. We see him as a fast riser, but the way this defense has looked so far, where they're not getting, they had a streak of not getting a stop for, was it 13 possessions before
dating the last season?
Half, snapped it finally, going back to last season. Then I couldn't see it. And in that scenario, I would have had Weaver taking over head coach, and linebackers coach Joe Barry has already been a defensive coordinator, so you could slide him in there. But it might make more sense for the structure of the team, if it was Darrell Bevell going from quarterbacks coach to then take over as interim head coach. He's done it already, I believe, twice. I think it was with Detroit and also with Jacksonville, where he was an interim coach dealing with midseason firing. So he's got experience doing it. He's got an abundance of play calling experience because then you would also lose a play caller in Mike McDaniel. So he could slide right into doing that easily. You keep Frank Smith in the same role, offensive coordinator. You keep your defense, which already does have one guy down in Ryan Crow as he's dealing with the arrest and the allegations of domestic violence and not with the team on a leave of absence currently. So you already have some shuffling going on the defensive side. So maybe you could keep the defense the same and then slide Darrell Bevell to head coach, where you also now have Bobby Slowick, I was about to say Ryan, who is a senior pass game coordinator and is already helping with quarterbacks in the passing game. So he could fill in for quarterbacks coaching duties.
Yeah, it's a muddled picture there at the top, which kind of seems unlikely when you're 0-2 and nothing has gone right. But they do have a lot of candidates there. Before we go on, let's say what's up to a lot of our regulars here. Lofi Anime NFT, Chris, Juan Pablo Barbuth. I'm sorry. Pretty Boy is out there. Rob is out there. Dave Harbor always checking in with us from San Diego. Comrade is out there. Mr. Fanatic, True Blazer, Robert Rodriguez. Who else is out there? Bagging up 4. What's going on, everybody? Pride 909, Peter McDowell. Good to see y'all out there. Who else checked in here? Robert Rosario checking in, saying, "Morning, Perk. Please give us some hope or optimism about these Dolphins." Furones, when we talk about optimism about these Dolphins, the offense did kind of show some signs last week of some life, right? We saw the Tua to Tyreek connection kind of come to life. Of course, that 47-yard completion, maybe it should have been a touchdown. Maybe it was underthrown a little bit. Mike McDaniel said that was almost by design. But we see some signs. We see the defense. I guess they are getting close to making some plays, but there's not a whole lot of reason for optimism. There's a couple of reasons for optimism. I would like to see Ollie Gordon get some more carries, but as Mike McDaniel told us, he's got to improve his off the ball stuff. When he doesn't have the ball, he's got to know what he's doing. We saw him make a good lead block from Malik Washington on I believe, an 18-yard carry. There are some small signs of optimism. The Tua to Jalen Waddle touchdown was an expertly thrown pass by Tua. How many reasons for optimism are there out there? I'm pretty much out. I'm pretty much out of reasons for optimism here, Furones.
Perk, here are my reasons for optimism. Nothing. So I had to do my Michael Corleone.
Exactly. Very well done.
No, I guess you could point to Tua to Tyreek connection was there for the first time in a long time, where I might be writing about that today. We'll see what comes of interviews with Tua and maybe Tyreek in the locker room as well. We only have one day of locker room availability this week, a lot of guys who want to be Friday guys. Well, Friday's after the game this week, so
right.
We kind of need you today. But Tua's having a press conference, so that might be my topic because Tyreek Hill after the game did say he had something to the effect of it felt like old times, where we know Tyreek Hill, he was pestered a little bit before this game in his Friday locker room interview about that he hadn't had a 30-yard reception in a full calendar year. It was week 1 of 2024, the Jacksonville Jaguars game, of course, coming off the detainment, making the long, scoring the long touchdown, the ensuing celebration, everyone knows. So it had been that long since week 1 of last season, and now this is week 2 of this year where he finally had another one. So maybe a little bit of a spark like old times. Tua got into a rhythm after a shaky start. He threw the would-be interception that was negated, but he certainly looked shaky those early possessions before the Dolphins actually went on I believe it was a 20-3 run, going from down 12-0 to ahead 20-15. Then it started turning back and forth. You had the 2 special teams returns, and then Tua, of course, not coming up clutch in the end after Devon Achane stepped out, throwing the interception on 4th down where there was a lot of disorganization, just getting the play in. And then, obviously, the sack at the end, the right side of the line at fault for that one. So maybe that's something. And I think the run game, I think they're doing some good things in the run game when they go to it. The operative word being when, which I think I'll be mentioning that when I write my Who Has the Edge, is that they have a chance of being effective on the ground against the Bills defense that is second to last. Of course, that was a lot against Baltimore and Derrick Henry. So the Dolphins do not have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson back there to run the football. But maybe some things that you could find, you could work off of, and the run game working in unison with the pass game could open things up. But it's going to take a lot to, like you said, have Mike McDaniel outcoach Sean McDermott, which hasn't been the case much in the past, and Tua Tagovailoa to outplay Josh Allen. But I will say this, the Dolphins tend to play at Buffalo well when no one expects them to. Like the close games, it's been everyone has thought it would be a blowout. Right. They're coming off atrocities, abominations, and they go in and play a competitive game like 2-6 last year. It comes down to a 60-yard field goal. The snow game, they were coming off the West Coast trip where they lost 2 games. It's when they're going with momentum, 3-0 and beating the Denver Broncos 70-20 that they go and get smacked 48-20. So maybe there's something there.
Hey, and let me ask you this, Furones. That's very good observations there by you. If they lose and if Mike McDaniel gets fired, what's the point for the rest of 2025? Are you trying to make the playoffs? Are you trying to get set up for 2026? Does Tyreek stay around? Do you stick with Tua, or do you look at what Zach Wilson has? Do you look at what Quinn Ewers has, thinking that you might need to draft a quarterback in the first round? I mean, I think when you get that interim coach, if it comes to that, if you're 0-3, I'm still trying to make a playoff run. I'm still trying to see what does this team have in October. And if you can get to 2-3, 3-3, well, then it's an all-out sprint for the rest of the way. If not, if you lose to the Jets and fall to 0-4, then I believe, is it Carolina after that? I can't remember. Yeah, Carolina with Bryce Young. I mean, if you lose to Carolina, if you lose to the Jets and Carolina back-to-back, the rebuild is in full-scale, operational mode. But I think if it comes to 0-3 and McDaniel is released, I think you've got to still try to keep some playoff hopes going, don't you?
Yes, just because it's so early in the season, even as you lose a head coach and that interim coach, whether it's Anthony Weaver, whether it's Darrell Bevell, that person could be vying for their own job to maintain the head coaching role, having it in a permanent sense, maybe like Antonio Pierce, who then ultimately failed once he had it, but he did have the Raiders going strong when he was an interim coach. So something like that, because, yes, you do come back with ample rest against the Jets at Carolina. The Chargers is after that. That's going to be a tough one, even at home, 1 p.m. kickoff for the West Coast team. But at Cleveland following that, and at Atlanta, who did just have an impressive showing on, it was a Sunday night. So that gets you then to the Baltimore, Buffalo, Washington string of games as you go, as October turns into November. So I think in the short term, you're still trying to vie for a playoff berth and run. But then if it goes south even through that October and some of those softer opponents, if you're not getting back to a 4-4 from 0-3, then maybe 3-5, but then you got to win a lot of games against much tougher competition. Then the rebuild is fully on. If you're 2-6 or 1-7, something like that.
All right, Furones, let's migrate on over to segment number 2. And when we talk about keys to beating Buffalo, the defense is one of those keys. And what in the world is wrong with this defense, specifically the front seven? That's actually the topic of my column for tomorrow. I overrated the front seven. I'm going to come out and say that right away. I overrated them. I thought that they were going to be game changers, potentially game winners. They haven't been effective at all. You mentioned the 13 consecutive possessions, scoring possessions, dating back to the Jets finale last year with 3 straight for the Jets, 7 straight for the Colts, and then the first 3 for New England before the kneel down to end the first half. I'm shocked at how bad this defense has looked. Look, I was a guy who during the offseason said they neglected the defense, that they gave so many resources to the offense, that they should have drafted a cornerback, that Anthony Weaver's unit needed more help. But I've got to question Weave. I've got to question what Anthony Weaver has done right now. And he's been a sacred cow for us, but you've got to call his coaching, his techniques, his methods into question. Why the heck has Willie Gay not been able to get on the field, right? Furones, the run defense has been a train wreck, right? 139 yards per game. I know they missed Calais Campbell. That's not a good enough excuse. The defense has been a bigger disappointment than the offense to me. To me, the defense has been the biggest disappointment of the season so far. What are you seeing with this defense?
Well, Parkway, I thought every time they played Buffalo, you do not fault the defense for anything because you say Josh Allen is going to score 30 no matter what. So you put all the blame on the offense. Hold on now.
That is true. I haven't blamed the defense yet. I haven't blamed them. I mean, I haven't blamed.
Well, you're setting it up. You're setting it up here.
I'm setting it up. But look, I have very little faith in this offense, but I have less faith in the defense. I don't think the defense has been, the offense, 34-31, you didn't have Tua, but still the offense only scored 2 touchdowns. The 48-20, the offense was terrible. 30-27, you had a healthy offense and a broken down defense. 32-29. Josh Allen took over. Maybe the defense should have been better. But look, this defense has to show something. You can't let Daniel Jones and Drake May come out and look like, Josh Allen and I don't know, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, whatever. I'm stunned at the defensive performance and the defensive coaching.
No, you're right. You can't play Daniel Jones and Drake May and then expect and play like that and then expect you're going to get stops against Josh Allen in his house. And you mentioned the D-line, and then so I just pulled up the defensive stats real quick just to see. Now, defensive line play isn't always measured by making tackles. Of course, we know you can consume double teams, free up linebackers and whatnot. But you got to go down the list for the first player on the D-line to lead in tackles. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You still don't have a defensive lineman. You have outside linebackers there, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, but not a defensive lineman until the tie for 7th with Rasul Douglas and Willie Gay, who did this in 3 snaps. He had 3 tackles in 3 snaps. Matthew Butler coming off the bench and Jordan Phillips, who had an elevated role because Benito Jones was out. So, the Kenneth Grant, Zach Sealer combination, we were expecting big things, and so far it hasn't been there. So that's where it starts. Willie Gay, Anthony Weaver said he was going to get him on the field. I mean, he did for 3 plays, but we see how impactful he is when he does get on there. He brings tremendous energy, especially if he's not going to be playing every down. Then he could be such an energy guy. I know it's a basketball term, but to go in fresh for a defense with someone with his physical abilities, a beast like he is, then you see what he can do when he goes in the game. So, the only thing I guess I would say that they got to Drake May a few times. Bradley Chubb now has 2 sacks in 2 games. Jordan Brooks came around and got a sack, and so did Chop Robinson, who doesn't start right now, but he comes in on pass rushing situations. And his snap count is still kind of down there a little bit as the season gets started. But as it pertains to this game, it is tough to envision this defense getting stops. I think the Dolphins would have to win with the offense helping the defense with long, time-consuming drives. Maybe they have to get into a shootout. The offense has to be as successful. They probably need to find lanes to run in the ground game against the 31st ranked run defense of the Bills. Maintain time of possession that way, plus the short passing game, and maybe hit the deep shot if the Bills just dare you because they overplay the other things being effective. That's kind of the one formula that I could see for the Dolphins to come out both competitive and off chance of coming away victorious.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I mean, the defense, another disappointment. It appears Ife Melifonwu has already been benched in favor of Dante Trader Jr. I know Ife has the calf injury that he sustained on that 90-yard kickoff return, but that was at the end of the game, pretty much. That was in the fourth quarter. He had already been replaced. That's a major, major disappointment for Ife to apparently have been benched 2 games into the season. And I'll tell you this also, Furones, one thing that I wrote about in my Sunday column when I said the Dolphins have nothing to anchor themselves on and they can't do anything, that front 7 needs to get home. And 2 plays that I wrote about were the 55-yard pass from Drake May to Ramondre Stevenson. Jalen Phillips, and it's the edge rushers doing their job. The edge rushers getting home. Jalen Phillips almost got to Drake May. He didn't quite close the deal. As a result, Drake May is able to lob that pass over to Ramondre Stevenson, who makes an outstanding catch on the run. Jordan Brooks is like 2 yards behind him, and it turns into a 55-yard catch and run. It sets up the touchdown, in which Drake May has a 6-yard run, during which he turns the corner on Matthew Judon, who couldn't quite get him. Those edge rushers have got to get home against Josh Allen and get him to the ground, Furones. That's
contained, contained too.
Yeah, they've got to. If you can't get to Josh Allen, now you're putting more of the game on either the run defense, and you got James Cook, or you're putting it more on that secondary, and the cornerbacks we know are still a work in progress. So I'm looking at these edge rushers, Furones. They've got to get Josh Allen to the ground. They've got to change momentum in this game. They've got to set a tone in this game.
Yeah, certainly. It was what we expected would be a strength. It only showed up in a few spurts, but yeah, key moments. Drake May getting around against Judon. Still not there, and that pass rush unit needs to provide a surplus of what you expect because they got to help that secondary too. So I'm with you, Perk. So both the defensive tackles at the top need to step it up, as well as the edge rushers. And the linebackers, they have their hands full with possibly someone having to spy Josh Allen, whether that could be a Jordan Brooks. Maybe Willie Gay would be tremendous, I think, in that role with his athletic ability. So maybe whenever he's on the field, if he gets more of a snap count. So a lot to watch there. And got to stop the run, first and foremost, James Cook as well, on top of Josh Allen with the scramble.
Right. As the edge rushers say, they have to earn the right to rush the passer. Want to say what's up to Gabriel Ebert, Ocean Breeze Detail, Billy Batson, who we got here, Green Glow Docklight. Who else is in here? We got a bunch of our regulars, Miami, Florida 305. Mal Be Crazy dropping in. Troy is here. P Double is here. Grandizer 12. JD the Great One. Seeing a lot of the familiar faces here. And I believe True Blazers said that he or she was here for this segment. The segment that's coming up. One of the top 4 segments of this 4-segment program. It is the Furones Bonus.
Oh, the Furones Bonus.
I love it, baby. Still got that enthusiasm for the Furones Bonus. We always get fired up for the Furones Bonus. All right, Furones, the topic you are tackling today, has Tua regressed? And one of the big things that we think about here, or that I think about here, is that Xavier Howard comment about Tua going into panic mode once that first read is covered. Has Tua regressed, David Furones?
Well, it certainly hasn't been the same with Tua, dare I say, since he got paid. I don't want to drop that allegation on him because I feel he goes about things the right way, but the downfield passes are fewer and far between if you go between last year for sure. And then obviously week 1 this year, maybe a little bit of a spark. He got things a little bit going, so I don't want to drop that on him entirely yet this season. There's a possibility. He did complete a high percentage of passes. We've known him to be that. Tyreek Hill, yes, he had to wait for that ball.
Yep.
Still a downfield connection. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it was a completion. The defender was still out of position. They took advantage, and he overran it. Tyreek, he's been coming back to ball since he had Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. We all know that from watching that film, so I'm not going to overblow that one. But I would have liked to see it in stride. Maybe it's 6 on that one too. But last year, missing 6 games. Remaining healthy is going to be a big key. So far, so good for him in that regard this year. But if they lose him again, then it's already season over if it happens anytime soon. I don't want to put that out there, put that energy out there, but it's something you always do have to talk about with Tua is his availability. And although statistically it might not have been such a bad game, you just look at the box score. And you feel, okay, Tua had a decent game. Tua still did his thing. It was a shootout at 33-27. Well, I think a lot of it, he's still not seeing certain things. Like the key 4th down, that was an interception when the offense was disorganized, getting to the line of scrimmage late. Yes, he had to go through multiple progressions and finally just flicked it out there. But he still had another moment if he used it. And Julian Hill was wide open in the flat. Where I'm assuming he makes the catch, he's probably making that play, converting the first down. Now, we also don't have the answer as to whether he was supposed to be chipping and releasing as an eligible, and maybe Tua didn't expect that he'd be doing that, so he's not even accounting for it. But if that was part of the play and the design, then I think Tua needed to see that, especially since he could have moved off. I think it was Malik he was throwing to and seen it once he realized that was covered as well. I think it was also Tanner Conner. He had open on a key down where Tua tucks it and runs out of bounds, protecting himself, which is another thing is that since he has to protect himself, then he's not making all the mobile plays that we see a lot of quarterbacks when we turn on the TV and the Dolphins aren't playing and we watching the primetime games and the Thursday night opener, the Friday night between Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes to open the season. All these other quarterbacks is that they're extending plays effectively and keeping their eyes downfield and then tucking it and running, scrambling when it's not there. So that is an area where he is limited. That's something we've known the whole time with Tua. But that's to the point of the Xavier Howard panic mode comment, because I think it was a little bit of that in the case of that interception late, and then obviously taking the sack on 4th down. You need to get the ball out. It's do or die at that point. Obviously, some misfortune with Devon Achane having his foot just go out of bounds, because if that doesn't happen, then we're talking about everything completely differently. So I will also give him that he gets, 26 more passing yards off of it, another touchdown, and because that was a pass, right? Yeah, it was a pass.
Yeah.
So, and the Dolphins win a thriller 34-33. So everything would be completely different terms if just game of inches, that doesn't happen. But obviously still so much to improve on for Tua and the offense, as it's been rough in the early going, even though he statistically had a decent game against the Patriots, who, by the way, their defense looked pretty bad without the defensive coordinator and without star cornerback Christian Gonzalez. Let's not forget about that when we assess the statistical performance of the offense.
And Furones, a lot of pressure. We talk about pressure on Mike McDaniel. The pressure is building on Tua also. Statistics for Tua: 40 for 55, 429 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's completing 72.7% of his passes. He's been sacked 8 times. He's got a 90.6 passer rating. Do any of those numbers stick out to you? To me, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 8 sacks. I mean, and you mentioned that he's unable to make plays with his legs. We saw Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in a duel, but any of those numbers stick out to you as particularly unto-alike?
Yeah, the sacks for one, and
Yeah.
we mentioned the offensive line. Obviously, he's got both starters down on the right side of the line. It only took 3 plays into the season for the Dolphins to be without their starting 5 on the line. Later in the opener, lose Austin Jackson. Now both of them will be out for at least the next 3 games. Already 1 game down on their minimum of 4-game IR stint. Your left side of the line is young. Obviously, I like what we're seeing out of Patrick Paul, but Jonas Avayanaya has had some early struggles as a rookie who has been thrust into such a key role early in his career after the Dolphins traded up for him. But usually Tua is seeing that and getting rid of the ball quickly. And back to the Xavier Howard point, you take away the first read, which if you're getting the ball out quickly, it's because you're just hitting the first read, right? You're not, you don't have time to go off a progression when you're taking sacks at such an alarming short period of time with very few seconds to throw. So there's that the getting the ball out factor. So taking those 8 sacks and then the turnovers, obviously. Because you also have to account for the would-be turnovers where Alec Ingold had to break up an interception in Indianapolis. You had another interception that was a bad decision. First drive of the Week 2 game that was negated due to penalty. The late interception that did count in this game. So you're still really, it's the turnovers and the sacks for sure.
Yeah. It's let me ask you this very quickly here. Does Tua miss his tight end, Jonnu Smith? I mean, we know that Achane had 78 receptions last year. As a matter of fact, Achane has a team-leading 11 receptions for 114 yards, which is second on the team behind Tyreek's 149 yards. Achane also has a team-leading 14 targets, which is one ahead of Tyreek's 13 targets. Is he missing Jonnu Smith? And I hate to bring up this name, Darren Waller, but is Tua missing the tight end, do you think?
Yeah, certainly. It was an effective part of last year's offense. It was what they added into the offense. I also think it was what the Dolphins felt, hey, Jonnu was getting those yards because defenses are so honed in on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they effectively stopped Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So Devon Achane is going to get open, whether he's coming out of the backfield or lining up out wide, and Jonnu Smith is going to get his based on that. But now Tua's not even looking the tight ends way because those 2 examples I gave you of him not seeing it, those were the tight ends that he has now. And they were open. So I don't think the trust is there to throw to Julian Hill, to throw to Tanner Connor, because he's not looking at them. They get open. The defenses are leaving them be because they're open. And maybe that's an adjustment you make into the Buffalo game if the Bills see that and then they decide to also go with that game plan. I think most NFL defense would be savvy to prioritize Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and if you leave someone open, it would be the tight end. But that's an adjustment maybe Tua needs to make is if they're just leaving one of your eligibles open, you got to hit them, even if it is Julian Hill and Tanner Connor.
Yep, I would agree. All right, Furones, let's migrate on to our final segment here. It is prediction time, baby. It is Dolphins.
I missed my cue.
We should get some kind of intro for the predictions. It is prediction time. Dolphins at Bills on Thursday night. Who you got? I'll go first. I'm going with a score from last year. I'm going Bills 31, Dolphins 10. That was the score of the game at Hard Rock Stadium last year. I don't see the Dolphins able to stop Buffalo again. The Bills have scored at least 30 points in all 4 games at Highmark Stadium in the McDaniel era. I'm not convinced that this offense has found its groove. I'll say this. The Dolphins scored 27 points last week, but the offense only scored 2 touchdowns. You have the special teams touchdown by Malik Washington. So I'm not convinced that this offense is where it needs to be right now to win a game.
Yeah, so I am going Bills 33, Dolphins 20.
Nice drama. I like that.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins can score a little bit more because the Bills are leaky in run defense. Maybe they get some drives going. I think that the Dolphins surprised people early in this game with all the noise. I feel like the players still have Mike McDaniel's back. Like I believe them. You know, when they're saying it, I know a lot of people on the outside would probably hear it. Well, what do you expect them to say? That's every fan's favorite comment to reporter questions and quoting players. We're just merely quoting them. You know, we're just the messengers here, and we always get that feedback. But I believe them, especially a lot of these guys. They have tight relationships with Mike McDaniel because he's someone who believed in them, whether in the draft or brought them in and has given them the players coach type of tutelage that a lot of players do enjoy. So I feel like, yes, they still back him. They want to win for him. They don't want it another way. A lot of coaches could be tougher, so I think players, it would behoove them to prove to people that Mike's way can work, so that it's easier on them. So I think they want to win for him, but ultimately I think maybe it's a 2-possession game late, and then that's kind of where that last competitive moment is. It ends up being a 13-point win, so somewhat competitive. I don't think they go in and get the doors blown off like a lot of people believe, because like I mentioned earlier, they actually do respond well when they go into Buffalo, and they have a lot of familiarity with them. So whenever they're coming off some down moments, they tend to pick themselves up and be competitive in those games, albeit still falling short. So I don't have this one coming down to a last-second field goal like last year's game, but I do see them just holding on for a while, and then maybe the Bills pull away with a early fourth quarter touchdown that kind of sets it where that'll be the final.
Rob checks in with Bills 30, Dolphins 10. Would love to be wrong. Billy Batson, 65-23 Buffalo. Achan with his typical 14 points against the Bills. What do we got here? Bagging up 4. Bills 45-7. Pretty boy, Bills 65-3. Wow, that is ugly, pretty boy.
I think we should go down these scores and say, does Mike McDaniel survive that score? 65-3. 65-3. No, Mike McDaniel is gone.
No. Yes, he's gone. He's gone. Yeah. He's gone.
What are the other ones we had there?
He's gone. Yeah. Let's see here. Well, I mean, I don't see any that Mike survives here. Chris says Bills 45, Dolphins 0, Troy 41-10 Bills, JD the great one. Okay, 31-27 Bills. I don't see any Dolphins wins right now. Dean Rodriguez says Dolphins will have a new interim by Friday. Ooh, Dean Rodriguez, 69-0 Bills. That would be a firing by the end of the second quarter right there. That's a halftime firing right there. I'll say this, I do think that the Dolphins want to win for Mike McDaniel, but if this is an ugly loss, there's no point in keeping Mike around. I think the faith would erode. They like Mike, but I think the faith in Mike would erode. I don't think they'll ever dislike Mike. I've talked to players on the record and off the record. They genuinely like him. To me, the big question is, where is the faith? Where is the confidence in his system, in his teaching methods? And I think if they lose to Buffalo, especially if they get blown out, the faith is gone. And the faith from the fan base is already teetering on the brink. That would be gone. And I think at that point, you would start to see fans not showing up to games. That's what would really get to Steve Ross. And so I think that's what we're talking about here is faith and confidence in Mike McDaniel as opposed to liking Mike McDaniel. As you say, I think the players like Mike and they always will, but will they keep the faith if they lose, I think that faith has eroded. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Dolphins Deep Dive. We got to get out to practice at 1:30. We appreciate everybody sticking around for this abbreviated show. I know I didn't get to as many reader comments as I usually do, but we're trying to keep this thing tight, which is usually a problem for me because y'all know I always go into fan comments here. But I'm going to try to end it right there. That's David Furones. I'm Chris Perkins. Check in with us next week. I don't know if I should say hopefully Mike McDaniel will still be the coach. I guess I should. I would like to see them win. Anyway,
We like him too, like the players.
We would
do.
like
to see his job, yes.
Yeah, Mikey is good to us and for us. So that's it for this week's edition. We will check in with you next week on Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk.